Okay, good morning to all, and welcome to the Westfield 300 Milestone Awards. My name is Brad Shinani, and I'm co-chair of Lifelong Westfield, and we're very, very excited this morning to sponsor this awards celebration. Lifelong Westfield was formed as the Mayor's Senior Advisory Council, which was adopted in March 2018. Lifelong Westfield goal is to make our town a great one for all of our seniors to age in place. In 2019, we hosted 9 events, which included a large senior activities fair, a meet and greet with the police and fire chief, senior master plan seminar, safety walking event in conjunction with our police department, where we gave away neon walking vests, and a senior technology workshop, as well as others. I'd like to thank our Lifelong Westfield Council of 12 members who have worked very, very hard to put this seminar together. This year, due to the pandemic, we've been forced to have most of our events virtually. In the past few months, you may have attended our June face mask giveaway. You may have also been part of our Friday Zoom discussion groups, or are part of our weekly pandemic phone calls. In early October, we'll be releasing our third quarter Lifelong Westfield newsletter, which will include a summary of today's event with all background stories and also letters from the chief and helpful winter hints from our health department. We will also include information on some of our upcoming events. Please go on the town website at westfieldnj.gov for our updated calendar of many monthly events that are taking place in the area. If you're not currently on our email or contact phone list, please send your contact info to westfieldnjseniors@gmail.com or call 908-301-1287 to give us your phone contact that way if you do not have computer technology. Before I turn today's festivities over to Mayor Brindle, I'd like to advise all winners and runner-ups today that they'll be receiving these beautiful award certificates in the next week, either by mail or they will be brought to you in person. A very, very special thanks to Joan Thurman and Lauren Harmer. Without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to our Mayor, Shelley Brindle, and everyone please stay safe and healthy.
Thank you, Brad. Hey, Brad, is there a reason why you're sharing your screen?
I don't know. This is the way it was set up.
Can you unshare your screen? Because I can't see my screen.
Oh, okay. Let me unshare.
I don't know if there's something we were supposed to be looking at on your screen.
Okay, it should be unshared now.
If Lauren Harmer's on, Lauren was going to pop up some pictures that were submitted as you were going, but I don't know if Lauren's on. So let's just go ahead. And
is my screen unshared now, Shelley?
Mike Gillen, can you unshare whoever's screen's being shared so that way we can see everybody? And then just, Mayor, are you going to just give a little overview of these awards? Brad, I didn't really hear you include an overview of the awards.
Yeah, and those overviews are, and the comments are on my screen, which I can't see because someone's sharing theirs.
Oh,
so I don't know whose AOL mail that is. But
I'm trying to figure out which Brad this is.
Brad, is that your screen? The AOL mail?
Mine is Coach C10, but
yeah.
I don't know why. Then you know what I'll do? I'll sign off.
No, that's okay.
You don't have to sign off, Brad.
Okay.
Just let's for anybody who's on, if you've shared your screen on the top, there should be a link that
says unshare. Unshare
screen. Would you mind doing that? Somebody's accidentally shared their screen and we can't see everybody.
But that's okay. So I will while they're figuring that out. So
there we go.
There we go.
Okay.
Thank you. There we go. Anyway, so thank you, everybody. It looks like we have a great crowd here, and as part of our 300, we wanted to acknowledge One, we have a town where, you know, people have lived here for generations. And I think that's one of the things that makes Westfield so special is how many times, you know, I meet people that say they grew up here and have chosen to come back and raise their own kids here. And I think we want to bring some recognition of to those people that have had such not only a lifelong commitment, but a generational commitment to our town, and also add some whimsy to it in terms of some of these other certificates or acknowledgements that we're doing today. So I know we're short on time, so why don't we start off with some of the ones that are that we're kicking off. So the first one, and a very, very important one, is the oldest resident of Westfield, which goes to Silvio Coletti. And he is 101 years old, which is, I don't know if anyone's here representing Silvio or not, but that is quite unbelievable. He actually beat out a couple other ones who were 99, 98, 95, and 91, which is hard to imagine. So congrats to Silvio, and we hope there's many more years where he can get he can cherish our community with his presence. The second award is the highest number of generations, going back to what I mentioned before. And I've met people who have been here for 3 generations, 4 generations, but we have Laura Glasser Baker, who is 6 generations in Westfield, as well as Jeff Peterson, which is unbelievable. So I thought I'd share a little bit about Laura's story. I don't know if she's here on the phone or not, but so I'm gonna read what Laura wrote in her submission. She says, my family has been in Westfield for 6 generations. Know very little about my great-great-grandparents. My father, Gerald Glasser, and many of you all know the Glasser family, always proudly introduced my 2 children, Rebecca and Harry, as the 6th generation in Westfield. He was a statistician, so I'm 100% sure he's correct about all the generations in town. My great-grandparents, Louis and Anna, owned a stationery store called L. Glasser Newsdeal on East Broad Street. And they had 3 children, Max, Harry, and Ruth. And they owned a store on Quimby called Glasser Shoes. And then they had another child named Jerry. Jerry married Ann, had 3 children, Laura, Tom, and Margie. And she is proud to be Laura, the 5th generation. Tom died on 9/11 and has a memorial. So we just talked about him at the 9/11 and honored him at the 9/11 service on Friday. And I was very lucky to meet and know Ann, who was at the service. So Tom died on 9/11 and he's part of our 9/11 memorial downtown. And his sister Margie lives in Madison. And Laura married Joel. They have 2 children, Rebecca and Harry, who are the 6th generation, and they all currently live in town. So it's nice to see Laura representing today. The Glasser family is a well-known family in town for the many contributions and sacrifices that they have made on our behalf. Many of you guys might know Jerry's, he had the statistics place. I think it's, I'm trying to remember where it was located. Was there for years in terms of office space over on Prospect. So they also had, her grandmother had charmed sour balls on the table for the snack on. So they had shoe stores, they were merchants in town, and yeah, it was statistical research on Prospect. And many of you guys, I remember that being here for years. And when Laura and Joel got married, they planned on moving to Westfield, and she said her dreams came true. So we are very proud to honor not only Laura as the 6th generation, but quite frankly, the entire Glasser family, who has made contributions in every generation that's been here. So congrats to Laura and to all the Glassers, and a big and many, many thanks for all that you have done. The other winner is Jeff Peterson, and he is also goes back to the Harrison family on his grandfather's side, dates back to generation 1 from 1862. They lived in Westfield. He was a police officer in town. Oh, wow, I actually have a picture.
Yeah, look at this.
That's unbelievable. That's crazy. So wait, I'm looking for
Peterson, I don't know which.
Remember to left, right, or seated. John. Oh, Harrison is the guy in the mustache on the bottom right. That's
got it. Yeah, isn't that what our police force look like?
That is great. So yeah, so they have been part of Generation 1. That's great. And then they had Generation 2 was in the National Guard in Westfield before World War I. And then Robert John Harrison, who passed away in 1989, was his grandfather, Jeff's grandfather, Navy veteran, World War II, a milkman in town, custodian at Tamaqua School, and married Elizabeth McGall. That's amazing. So thank you, Jeff, for sharing that story, and thank you for your contributions to Westfield. That's incredible. All right, so we also had many 5 generations: the Ross, the Infantinos, the Larisons, the Hutchinsons, the Cagnassolas, and the Menino family. So that's incredible. So the third award is the longest years married, and it's probably no surprise that our longest resident, oldest resident is also the longest years married, Sylvia Coletti, married for 73 years. Verna and Silvio celebrated their wedding anniversary on April 27th. And Mr. Coletti was from Linden, was a watchmaker in New York, retired in 1984. He was a bombardier in the U.S. Army, Air Force, and Air Force of World War II, serving in the Pacific Theater. Unbelievable. He just, as we said, he just celebrated his 101st birthday. And Mrs. Coletti was from Georgia, and she was an energy auditor with Honeywell before she retired in 1992. And they met in 1943 when Sergeant Coletti, when he was Air Force Cadet, he landed his plane on an airfield that Verna's family leased to the U.S. Army Air Force. That's incredible. And they married on April 27, 1947. They've got 5 children, 4 grandchildren, 6 great-grandchildren. That's amazing. And they lived in Westfield since 1959. So congratulations to Sylvia and Verna. That's amazing. The 4th award, most children raised in Westfield. Wow. Elizabeth Avis, 10 children. That's incredible. Elizabeth Sherman Avis was born in 1921, and she grew up on a house built by her parents on Rahway Avenue, which is now Burgess Court. They had a first double wedding ceremony at Holy Trinity Church, and they had a long-term family home on Carlton where they raised their 10 children: Greg, Tim, Monica, Teresa, Beth, Margaret, who am I saying? Becca, Amy, Josephine, Dan, and they're all graduates of Westfield High School. Incredible. The 5th award, most grandchildren living in Westfield. And that, I'm not surprised because this is a name that's very familiar to all of us. Jerry and Linda McCabe have 5 grandchildren that live in Westfield. And I know many McCabes, as many of you guys might too. They have 4 kids they raised in Westfield and 9 grandchildren, including 5 that are raised in Westfield. 3 kids from their son, Tim McCabe, who you guys might know as a dentist in town, Brendan, Megan, and Andrew. And their other son, Michael, has 2 kids, both one at Edison and one at Jefferson. So that's incredible. Love it when these generations. Oh, this is a good one. 6th award, oldest running car, 1964 Ford Mustang. I think there might be a picture of that Ford Mustang.
I think, I'm not sure. Is this it?
Oh, there's Kelly Hutchinson. Yes, this is it.
Check that car out.
That is incredible.
You have a few more pictures too.
Oh my God, that is amazing. And it was actually owned by her grandfather, Joseph Villa, who came to Westfield in 1897. And he had 7
I'm
children.
sorry to interrupt. A slight correction. It was my father's side, the Burns side.
Oh,
Villa was the runner-up for the generation.
Actually, you know what? Why don't you tell this story, Kelly, since you're on there?
And I apologize for interrupting.
No,
Thank you.
It's much better here for you. Tell the story about the car.
So the car was purchased by my grandfather, Joseph Robb. And if you go to the pictures.
Oh yeah, hold on.
Joseph Burns.
Yeah, I'm gonna do it right now.
So my dad had recently left Ford. Where he worked on the catalytic converters for older versions of Mustangs. My grandfather Burns, and this is the upper right-hand corner. He wanted a Mustang because my dad got a 67. My dad found him the 64. This is actually a 64 and a half. It's the first production run of the Mustang. And when my grandfather started getting sick, it went to my grandmother. and then to my dad, and then to me. So we have 3 generations of the Burns family on the Mustang, and everyone, another fun fact, every one of the Burns family that is on the title for the Mustang and has owned it is also a graduate of Purdue University, where my great-grandfather, my grandmother's father, was actually a professor and taught there, and he started to go to Purdue in 1890s. He graduated 1897.
That's
Wow.
incredible.
So the car is also Purdue colors. It's old gold and black. So it has lots of fun ties.
And
That's amazing.
what's its gas mileage?
On
Miles
the
per hour.
gas mileage or the odometer reading?
Well, both. Like, what's the odometer reading?
It's under 30,000. It's all original.
Wow. Oh my God. It's
Wow.
pristine condition.
It's never been in rain. It's always in the garage and has been since it was bought by the original owner. So
Wow. I love the wedding photo. That's amazing.
I had to tie my grandparents into the wedding somehow. I thought
That's
that was
great.
a really good tie.
That's great. Thank you for sharing.
That's great.
And the next we have is the oldest dog. And that is Carol Payton. Is she here by any chance? She has,
Sure too.
and I think it's Kelly, Carol Payton Kelly, and then also Charles Rada. Oh, there we go. Her dog, oh my gosh, that dog is, that's a wait, is that a cockapoo? Yeah. Wow, she's 17 years old. Oh. So there's 2 of them. There's Angel the cockapoo, right? And she joined in when she was 2 months old. Now she's 17 years old. That's incredible.
Wow. Beautiful dogs.
Yeah. Let's see. And then we have, I find this hard to believe, we have the oldest cat, Toby. Do we have a picture of Toby?
Yep.
I find that hard to believe. Oh, sorry for my dogs. I'm surprised that usually you find cats that live to be like 20 years old. I'm surprised we have a dog that's actually older than the cat.
Yeah.
So from Nancy Welch. So I don't know if Nancy's on the phone or not, but that's incredible. And Toby looks like Toby is in very good shape and health.
Very cute.
So the 8th award, and this is very funny, the oldest Westfield High School graduate, and that is Nancy Welch, who has Toby. And she graduated from the Westfield High School class of 1941.
Wow.
That's amazing. She had gone to Roosevelt, and let's see, I've met Nancy before. Oh yes, and she was a member of the Westfield Community Players, which we all are familiar with around town. She came back to Westfield in 1958, and she's an amazing dancer, and she still practices ballet, if my memory serves me correctly. And she was a choreographer and dancer with the Community Players, so that's incredible. So oldest cat and oldest high school graduate. Congrats, Nancy.
Nancy is wonderful.
Yes. All right. So I'm going to hand over discussion on this award to the oldest business in Westfield. And we are incredibly fortunate that we actually have a local paper that is still published here in town, and that is the Westfield Leader. So I see Lauren Barr is on here, and I'm actually going to get Lauren to talk a little bit about the history and some of the pictures that we're seeing here.
Thank you so much, Maren, and thanks to the Lifelong Westfield Committee for doing this. So I'm really proud to be the newest owner of the Westfield Leader. The paper started in competition with the Union County Standard in 1890. It was started by what we would now equate to the Westfield School Superintendent, but it was called the Managing Principal. And it was run out of a place, a printing company that was in the original Arcanum building on the corner of Elm and Prospect. The Leader, so I'm the 11th publisher, and the Leader has survived 3 fires at 3 different locations, including the Elm Street location. So unfortunately, we lost the original archives from 1890 to 1911, but everything else we've digitized and is in possession of both us and the library, which is fantastic, and that's all searchable in PDF. And we've continued to weather the storm of COVID and continue to bring the local news, and we're really proud of our product every week and so happy to be part of the Westfield community. I grew up here, I'm a Westfield High School grad, and it's nice to be home.
So Lauren, what is that picture photo on the right? Where was that?
The one on the right is the original J.H. Cash Printing Company. That's the original Arcanum building, which was destroyed in a fire.
Where was that? Do you know?
The corner of East Broad and Prospect.
Oh, really? Oh, interesting.
So that's what you're looking at there is now the Taylor.
Right. Yep.
That's that corner. So, and the funny thing is that when I uncovered the photo, it's J.H. Cash Printing, and my husband's name is J.H.
Oh, that's amazing.
So
That's incredible.
and it changed hands a couple of times in the 1890s, and then the Lee family owned it for over 80 years and 3 generations.
Wow. Well, we're very grateful that you took the leap and became the 11th publisher. And I think, again, we're very fortunate to have an actual published paper in our town. Most of them, as we all know, haven't survived. And we anticipate great things with you at the helm, Lauren.
Thank you very much, Mayor.
The next award are for war veterans. And we have, let's see, John Chick Miller. I don't know if we have, do we have any pictures of, oh, look at that. Oh, look, there's a crossing guard. I love the photos. So Chick and his wife, Marge, were born in Westfield. They lived here their entire lives. He was born in 1926 and she in 1929. And they live on Garfield Avenue in a house built by Marge's parents in 1923. Marge's dad was a policeman in Westfield, and they have bought the house, and they have 3 children who all live in the area. So they have been around for a long time, and Chick graduated from Westfield High School in 1944. He played baseball in a semi-pro summer league for a team called the Westfield Hawks. But before the season was over, he was drafted and sent to Italy, arriving shortly before the surrender of Germany. He actually caught the scarlet fever and was in the hospital when he got the news about the surrender, and his unit was preparing to ship out to join the invasion of Japan when Japanese surrendered. So he spent more time in Italy as part of the occupation forces before he finally went home. And he met Marge on one of his many trips home during his military training. Then they were married in 1950 after he graduated from Westfield High School in 1947. So they are celebrating their 70th wedding anniversary on November 18th. That is incredible. He worked for the U.S. Postal Service for 30 years, where he was a mail carrier for 7, and then he moved up the ladder and managed the Mountainside and then the Westfield Post Office. That's so great. And after his retirement, he served as a Westfield crossing guard, which you can see in this picture, which is so great. So anyway, he is very much into gardening, and in particular his gardenia plants. And they said feels very grateful for his life here in Westfield. And we're very grateful for you, Chick, for your service to our country and to our community. So incredible. I don't know if either Miller is on the phone, but thank you for your service. Another one that a veteran that we're going to recognize is Robert Lewis, who served in World War II. He went in the Navy 10 days after graduating from high school, and he served. He said he was a replacement for all the guys who were getting out on points, and he went in. And his first deployment was in the Caribbean, then to the Mediterranean, and he is. I'm trying to read. He wasn't in the fighting, but he definitely was part of the show of force to keep the peace in the region after things returned to normal. So said he's so grateful he was able to see the Rock of Gibraltar, the pyramids in Egypt, the Parthenon in Greece, the Colosseum in Italy, and the Grand Canal in Venice, and all over the world. So he had an audience, he said, with 49 other guys with Pope Pius XII, which is amazing. So But anyway, he said even though he only served his country for 2 years, that he didn't feel that he was, really qualified. But I think any service, certainly during the World War II, he's part of the greatest generation. And we're incredibly grateful for your service and be able to recognize you today. So, and I know if Bob has been an incredible contributor to Westfield. So thank you for your service, Bob.
Shelley?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, it's Brad. If I could just add, I know Robert is listening, but he can't speak on the call. But Robert is still a crossing guard for our school system, which is amazing, and is every day goes in his woodwork shop downstairs and does woodworking. He's just a tremendous, tremendous man. So since Bob,
Well,
you didn't speak, I wanted to add that.
Absolutely. And Brad, my family has been the beneficiary of Bob's generosity. Each one of my kids has their name in wood that's been woodworked by Bob. And Bob so graciously, right before we shut down, came to a council meeting where he had created a version of the Westfield 300 logo in his woodworking shop, which I have hung in my office. So Bob is an incredible, kind individual and beloved all around town, but in particular by the members of the Washington school community. So very grateful to be able to honor him today. And once again, Sylvia Coletti, who was quite the life, was a World War II veteran who we talked about. And Phyllis Peckup is also a World War II veteran. And she enlisted in the Marines after the attack on Pearl Harbor. And she was a squadron administrator at Cherry Point, North Carolina. And she actually achieved the rank of staff sergeant. And then she met and married a fellow Marine Corps sergeant, Robert Pecka, while there. And she was honorably discharged in October of 1945. So thank you, Phyllis. I always like to honor the women veterans, particularly of World War II, who are so incredible to our war efforts there. So, what a treat to be able to recognize and honor all of them as well. So I think that concludes all of our awards. Is that right? Do we have any more pictures to share?
Can we just go through the runners-up, just because I know we have a number of them on the phone, and they are equally worthy, but we had to pick a winner, but we wanted to highlight the runners-ups because their longevity is still incredible and worth acknowledging.
Absolutely. So on that, and I'll go back. So on the, I think I mentioned the generations one, and on the and the oldest resident. I don't know if any of them here. When I mentioned Phyllis Pecka, who we talked about, is 99. Blanche Jacob is 95. Jottie Sworn is 98, and Elizabeth Avis is 91, and which is incredible. On the runners-up for generations, which I mentioned, I think I said all of them are fifth generations. The Ross, the Infantinos, the Larsons, Kelly Hutchinson, we sought to see her car, Thomas Cagnassola, and the Menino family, all 5 generations. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, we have some pictures, and I'll try to get them up at the right time.
Oh, yeah, thank you. And let's see. Hang on, I want to make sure that I give you.
And can I just add, because I thought about this, we hear 5th generation, 6th generation, but we should bring it to life. If I'm correct, 6th generation means somebody's great-great-grandfather lived in Westfield.
Yes.
And then their great-grandfather lived in Westfield, and then their grandfather, and then and then themselves, and then their children. I don't even know who my grandfather is, let alone my great-great-grandfather, and I'm sure many of us probably would agree with that. That's incredible.
And let alone know where they lived.
Yeah, such continuity of one family in Westfield, and even 5 generations is incredible. So, that to me speaks volumes about how amazing Westfield is.
Yeah, and multiple families of 5 generations.
Yeah.
Is it really incredible?
Absolutely.
For sure. I would say, so on the marriage, do you have a picture of John and Marjorie Miller?
I do, yep.
70 years. So, which is unbelievable.
Yes.
Unbelievable. Wow. Oh, that's congratulations to the Millers. That's
Wonderful.
unbelievable. And then we talked about, the Cormackers in terms of grandchildren. We had mentioned that the McCabe's had 5 grandchildren, but Walter and Madeline Cormacker, who I both know, have 4 grandchildren here in Westfield, who are all living in Westfield, which is unbelievable. So we mentioned the dogs, we mentioned the cats. And we should mention the oldest Westfield High School graduate. That's after Nancy Welch, who we mentioned. But in addition, we have Marjorie Miller, who we see here. She was class of 1944. John Miller, her husband, was class of 1947. And Barbara Moore was the class of 1949. So that's incredible that we have people that longevity still living here. And I should also mention the leader obviously really set the, as the oldest business, but there are also and McIntyre's. I live around the corner from McIntyre's. Other oldest businesses, McIntyre's has been around for 122 years. Incredible. Still getting people out of their locked vehicles. Which is when I've used them. That's amazing. McEwen's, incredible. 100 years, which is amazing. One of my favorite flower shops. The Infantinos, if anybody knows and familiar with our garbage disposal and other things, 75 years, started in 1945, and we all know the Infantinos. I think, is there an Infantino on the phone?
I think so.
Anyone to say anything? Are they able to comment?
Yeah.
Is that Paula?
Yes, I'm on the phone.
Oh, hi, congratulations. And can you talk a little bit about your history here?
Well, I did submit a paper on behalf of our family, and we're really appreciative of all the work that you've done for this. And we are honored to be recognized as one of the 5th generations to be here. I have quite a long story. I don't know that I should really go into
and you should know all of these stories are going into like the archives for the Westfield 300, and they'll be, part of the history incorporated. So, so the stories are quite for everyone to share. So thank you so much for submitting.
Well, let me just say one thing though, that my grandparents came, the first grandparent came in 1912 and worked for Tuttle Brothers, which was a lumber yard. And Mr. Tuttle actually was state senator at that time, who lived in Stoneleigh Park.
Oh, really?
He came in 1912, and Mr. Tuttle actually helped him build a home on Downer Street in 1920. And there's so many little pieces to my story. And that house, which was built in 1920, has been in the same family for 100 years. My cousin is still living in the same house for 100 years. And the house my brother lives in was built by my dad in 1947, and he still currently lives in that house, Jerry Infantino. But the really interesting thing is my whole family lived within 4 blocks of each other. Both sets of grandparents were on the same street at opposite ends. I had, they had 19 children that lived within Westfield, all within the 4 blocks. And they, of course, now they went on to have 34 grandchildren, which do not all live here. But it's incredible. We were all living within a 4-block radius, as typical Italians do. So
how lucky to be able to do that, right? That's incredible.
it really was a special time.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your family's contributions and for joining us today.
We're proud to be here.
I actually think I see Laura Glasser Baker. Is she, I think I see her name. Is she on? Can she talk? I'd love to hear her talk a little bit about her family over the generations. Not to put you on the spot.
Uh-oh.
Laura?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, can you share? I know I read, but it's always better to come from the source. Can you talk a little bit about your family and, how a little bit of your story, which I shared, but you can personalize a little bit about, how long you've been here and your grandparents and great-grandparents. 6 generations is incredible.
My great-grandparents owned a store called L. Glasser News Dealer, and that was in the 1994 calendar that Westfield put out. The picture of them, I forget, I think it was July. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, and then my grandparents owned Glasser Shoes, and anybody who's lived in Westfield knew Glasser Shoes. It was on Quimby Street. And then my dad owns Statistical Research. And that's it. We live here on Mohawk Trail with our 2 kids, my husband and I.
Laura, did you ever consider living anywhere else?
Well, just when I first got married, we couldn't afford an apartment in Westfield, sadly. So we had to move to Roselle Park, but we were out of there in less than a year. And we moved to the apartments at the end of East Broad, Witchwood Garden.
So how many Glassers in total live in Westfield currently?
Currently, 5.
5. Wow.
My mom and myself, my husband, and my 2 kids.
Wow. Huh. Well,
Oh, and my father's wife still lives in town.
yes. Well, there is an incredible legacy of the Glassers in Westfield and the surrounding communities. So thank you for sharing your story and for the contributions of your generations of Glassers to Westfield.
Hey,
Thank
Shelley,
you.
You know what, since it's so wonderful to hear from either winners or even runners up, and since we don't really know who's on the phone, but if somebody wanted to share a little bit more about their story, I think that would be wonderful. The easiest way to do it would be if you know how to raise your hands using Zoom, or if just unmute yourself and just chime in. I think that would be great, just briefly, to bring yourself and your story to life, if anybody's interested.
This is Tom Cagnassola. If you wanted to bring up the screen, I'm 5th generation. Well, actually, I shouldn't say that. My kids would be 5th generation. My great-grandfather moved to Westfield Avenue in 1918, and right across from Holy Trinity. That property, to the best of my knowledge, is still within the Cagnassola household. The name has changed, obviously, the last names throughout the generations. But my grandfather graduated in Westfield High School in 1922. My father graduated as well. My daughter just recently graduated and is attending Elon. And I actually bought my grandfather's house on High Slip Avenue. So it's a very similar story. For the last 88 years, this house has always been in the Cagnassola household.
Wow.
And true to form with the Italian story, the next door neighbor was my grandfather's brother. And at one time, my great-grandfather, he had owned over 30 different properties throughout Westfield and Cranford. So legacy goes pretty far back. I unfortunately don't know all of the cousins, aunts, and uncles that have lived throughout the years, but my uncle Robert still maintains, he's owner of Suppley Clooney in downtown.
Oh, yeah.
He's recently moved over to Watchung, but he was a lifelong Westfield, graduating in Holy Trinity. So yeah, I would say the generations are continuing, and my oldest is a junior at Westfield High, or youngest, I'm sorry, is a junior at Westfield High School presently.
Oh, now who's the picture on the left? Is that your grandfather?
That's my great-grandfather.
Great. And
so,
it looks like, was he a police? It looks like he's got a badge. Was he a police officer or some?
he was actually he worked for the state of New Jersey as a housing inspector.
Oh,
So
really?
he was the New Jersey State Housing Inspector at one time.
Wow.
So and then my grandfather worked he worked in the building in Elizabeth, the county clerk building in Elizabeth. And then my father's first house was on High Slip. He bought at 123 High Slip, and then moved out to the family moved out to Bridgewater for a short period of time, and then we, like every story, have come back to Westfield.
Right. Well, that's great. Thank you so much for sharing that. I love hearing these stories.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for putting it together.
Oh, you're welcome. Did anybody else want to share a little bit?
Yeah, sure. This is Kelly Hutchison, and I'm from my mother, Carlene Villa Burns. She does want to say a very, very big thank you for this, and she wanted to also say thank you for the opportunity to share the family history. So, looks like you might have moved or deleted the picture, but my Villa side of the family, so my mom's, came to Westfield in 1897. It was Joseph Villa Sr. 7 kids, and his brother Guy moved, and he also had 7 kids. The 2 brothers built identical houses on Livingston Avenue, which still stand today. They and their father, yep, that one. So the upper right is the Villa brothers. Those are my grandfather and his brother. And the family, after they moved here, they got into road construction. And what they did for the town was they had a stable in the Townsend building where Adler's is now located, and that's where they housed and took care of their horses that were used to plow the roads. And then they would pour the road foundation, do the road, and they'd also build the foundations. They also did the original foundation for Caitler Stadium. Fun fact. My grandfather and all of his brothers went through Westfield High School. My grandfather actually went to Westfield High School when it was on Elm Street, the original. My mother, when she was in high school, between her and her cousins, there was 56 within the school system at one time. And yeah, so.
Where did, Kelly, so the Villa, there's a Villa family over by New England Drive. Is that the same family?
That would be the identical house that my grandfather's brother built for his wife. They had an identical house on Stoneleigh Park.
Wow. Oh, that's so interesting. I'll have to go take a look. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's fascinating.
You're welcome. And again, thank you for this.
Thank you for sharing.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
David, this is Keith Gibbons. I'm with Jack and Betty Avis, my in-laws, and we're very much enjoying the slideshows. Did you happen to have the pictures that we submitted? Are they available or not?
I don't know. Unfortunately, I didn't put the slideshow together, but we're going to publish all the pictures.
Yeah, we'll look forward to that. But I just wanted to say thank you for putting everything together. We very much enjoyed watching it and listening to everyone. And I also wanted to give a shout out to the Colettis, who we grew up across the street from them. We were on Summit Court and they were on Rollway Avenue. So many fond memories of some great things there. Their son built racing cars in the driveway when we were little kids, and did quite a few things, but great memories. They're right next to where St. Helens is.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah. And we remember, and Betty Avis, who I'm with, she remembers behind Coletti's, which is St. Helens, when that was Blado's farm. And when I was a kid, we used to go over there and play with the horses and everything. And the barn pretty much was where the church sits, and the house was closer to the road. But great memories of early Westfield when that was a farming community and a lot of it was undeveloped. But just beautiful times, and thanks again.
And I'll just add my thanks, Keith, for being here. And for those, Keith is an amazing volunteer and contributor to our community. He's one of our police chaplains, and he also runs the Westfield Food Pantry. So, and along with a gazillion other things. So Keith, I just want to thank you for sharing here, being here, and also being such an invaluable contributor to our community. So thank you.
Thank you, Shelley.
Did anybody else want to share? And if not, we're going to transition to a brief presentation by our town historian about bringing to life some other aspects of Westfield history. Anybody else want to speak up though beforehand?
This is Paula Long. I just want to thank you all very much for all that you did and for this honor for our family.
And I'll just say I have certificates for everybody that we've created and will be distributed. I have them on my computer, but I won't go through them all and sharing screen, but everybody will be getting a certificate acknowledging their award today. So thank you again so much for participating. This is so fun for me.
Yeah, no, this is great. Brad or Deidre, I think Deidre is on. Do you want to introduce the speaker? And then we'll transition to the next phase of our presentation today.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. Sorry for that. We've had some technical difficulties, but I'm glad we're all together now. And even though you couldn't hear me before, I did hear all of the awards, and I just want to congratulate all the winners and all the families for everything they've done through the years in town. I had asked Bob Wendell, our town historian, as Shelley mentioned, to say a few words about Westfield's history, especially during the lifetime of our honorees. Bob is on the board of the Westfield Historical Society. He's also the archivist there. He's involved with the Miller Corey House Museum, and he's a member of the Historic Preservation Commission. So there's nobody that knows more, I don't think, about the town history of Westfield than Bob. So take it away, Bob.
Thank you very much. I am really pleased to be a part of this presentation. I think that what we've heard here is the fact that Westfield is a town that has a long history of families that have stayed here and continue to build the town over an extended period of time. When you look at the history of this town, going back well over 300 years, we say it's 300 years old, but there actually were a couple families that had settled this area in Greater Westfield, or the Westfields of Elizabethtown, much earlier, 10, 15 years earlier, in fact. But the 300 years really is a tribute to these families and many other families that built this town up from the fields of Elizabethtown into what it is today. So I want to commend everybody for such a great presentation and being involved in honoring many of the families over the years. I unfortunately can't seem to be a participant visually, so I had to call in. But I had some great photos to show you, but unfortunately we can't do that. So I'm going to make a pitch that in October I will be doing a Zoom presentation on the history of Westfield, and you can check out the Historical Society website. We haven't yet posted it yet, but we'll post a link there for a Zoom presentation on the history of Westfield that I've done in the past, and also you'll be able to see many of the photographs of the length of this town, the history of this town for the past 300 years. It is an interesting journey. I am not a Westfield original resident. I grew up in Illinois, in a town that is very, very similar to Westfield, and that's why I fell in love with Westfield. It is about the same size, it's about the same population, and when I came to Westfield, I realized that, in fact, I was home again. And from that perspective, I really began to dig into Westfield's history, working with the Historical Society, joining their board, joining the board of Miller Corey as well, and now I walk around in silly costumes, as the mayor can attest to. I really love this town and its history, and so I find it just fascinating, and am always willing to sit and talk with people and talk about the long history that this town has. The town goes back, as I said, to 1720, started as kind of the intersection of Mountain Avenue and East Broad. Mountain Avenue was an old Indian trail. That's when New Jersey was called Shia-Ichibi, and the Lenni Lenape native tribes were in this area and lived and walked down that menacing trail, which is what Mountain Avenue used to be called. The Native Americans actually used to go down to the beach in the summertime, just like we do today, and enjoy the cool breezes off the water. And they lived there in peace until the new immigrants, the British and the Dutch, came from Europe to settle this area. The town, when you look at our town, you can see some remnants of our history in the Miller Corey homestead, in the Cornelius Ludlam house on Central Avenue, and the Daniel Pearson house on East Broad, amongst other historical structures in town. And having those buildings available for people to see and to remember the history and act as an icon for our history is really something very special. The town, one thing that you can always be assured about Westfield is that it will change, and it has changed over 300 years, quite a bit. It was started out as a small settlement around Mountain Avenue in East Broad, and has developed into actually the surrounding towns were all part of Westfield at one point as well. and eventually broke off in the middle to late 1800s, and we're left with the remnants or the core of Westfield. But parts of Rahway, Clark, Garwood, parts of Cranford, Scotch Plains, Fanwood, and so forth, all were part of the greater Westfield area, which really incorporates a huge history of this area. The town has always changed and will continue to change. And so one of the challenges that we have at the Historical Society and also on the Westfield Preservation Commission, frankly, is to understand how we can capture that history, capture some key structures, and figure out how we can tell the history, the lifelong history of Westfield for future generations. And that history is quite varied. It's so varied that, in fact, I don't think I can get into a whole lot of detail, and we'll be here for three or four days. As people know, I can chat about the history of Westfield for hours on end. But one of the things that I think is important to remember is that even though we've changed and the town has changed, we have the same core values, the same core structures in many cases, the same families that made this town fantastic are still here and continue to contribute to the town's success. So as I scroll through my presentation and look at some of the photos, it is amazing the degree of construction and change that this town has gone through over the past 300 years. It's really starting as a bunch of fields where the farmers grew crops for the British when they dominated this area, and so many of those crops were sent down to the plantations down in the Caribbean to feed the enslaved people down there who were growing sugarcane for the British. This area was really integral to the development of this country, and this town as well serves for the history of the whole East Coast in many respects. So from that perspective to moving to today, the town continues to develop, it continues to change, and that's one of the things that is special about it, because it continues to grow and live. So from a historical perspective, we should celebrate our history. We should relish in the fact that this town has a deep and significant history, and we should respect it. Moving forward, we will continue to develop and grow. And I think that's one of the important things for us to remember, is that change is not necessarily a bad thing. Change is good. And as long as we maintain an understanding of our history and use it as a foundation to propel us into the future, that is, I think, one of the most important lessons that history has for us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Robert.
Thanks, Bob.
And Robert, if any of you have ever seen any of Robert's, discussions, lectures, I would encourage you to participate. I presume that the Lifelong Westfield folks has your contact information, so we can also send out a link to when Robert's going to be making that presentation. And I'll just add, I grew up in Yorktown, Virginia, the heart of the Battle of Yorktown and the winter where the Revolutionary War was won. So like Robert, my mom was a docent in Colonial Williamsburg, and I grew up, absorbing the Revolutionary War. I got married in Colonial Williamsburg. So when I came to Westfield, and I remember when I first walked into the Reeve House, I was like, oh my gosh, I am home again. And that's what I really love about the community, is the juxtaposition of this history that we're trying to celebrate here today with the progress that I think we've made and will continue to make over the generations. So and Robert has been an incredible keeper of that story and helping to get it out in the community like what we're trying to do. So thank you, Robert, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. It's Brad again. I first want to congratulate all of our winners today. This was very, very exciting. A lot of fun, especially under what we're all dealing with right now. And I for one, think it was great. Again, congratulations to all the winners. I really want to thank you, Mayor, for being involved with us in this presentation. It made it that much more special. The certificates that were made up are absolutely beautiful. We will be either sending them out or hand delivering them to everybody within the next week. And I think you'll be very, very excited to see them. And a special thanks to everybody who was involved in putting this together. Also, because we are going to make our third quarter Lifelong Westfield newsletter a special one this time, because we want to include all of these winners, runner-up, and all the backstories. We will be sending it out through the Lifelong Westfield email, but also if anybody would like to receive one in print, please reach out to us. You could either send us an email at that westfieldnjseniors@gmail.com or by calling the 908-301-1287 number. Also, for anybody who would want to be included on our info and mailing list, please reach out to us, because as we all know, not a lot of the seniors, or maybe a third of the seniors, have email capability. This is a clientele, so to speak, that needs to be reached out by mail, phone, email, and flyers. So we're all trying to get out and reach as many of you as possible. But thanks to everybody today. I don't know if Mayor, if you wanted to say anything, but thank you all. This was a great, fun morning.
No, and I'll just add my thanks to Brad and to Councilman Contract and to Deirdre for organizing and hosting this. It's again, the Lifelong Westfield is one of my most proud initiatives, and don't tell anyone, one of my favorites. So I'm very grateful for your participation today, and hope you all will stay engaged with Lifelong Westfield in our community going forward. So thanks, and stay well, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful day. Please be safe and healthy.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, guys. Thank you.